You're listening to Musical Talk at the Edinburgh Fringe. Hello and welcome to Musical Talk here at the Edinburgh Fringe 2011. And I'm Thos Ribbits, not so much a one-man show as a one-man shower. That's a very clever joke, write it down so you can enjoy it later. By the time this episode goes out, the Edinburgh Fringe will have finished for this year. And so we're now at that worst point, which is as far away as it's possible to be from the next one. But I'm already counting down the days. But Musical Talk hasn't finished with the Edinburgh Fringe yet, and we've still got several more episodes where we have reviewed so many of the musicals which are up there in the world's biggest arts festival. I had such fun up there, and so did my new fellow presenter, David Kingsmill. But today, I've tied all the interviews that you're going to hear together with a particular theme, and that's about variations, visions, and variants on musicals which we know and love already. Everything you hear about today will be in some way slightly different to what you might expect. But that variation and difference will be, well, different in every case that we discuss. So, I do hope that you'll enjoy this, a series of interviews, reviews and insights into, well, those shows which have done something slightly different to their source material, or done something slightly different to what might have been expected that you would do with a particular kind of genre, or in some cases found that there's limits on what the direction can do to allow you to find variants. And we'll be tackling all of these things from totally different angles. So I do hope that you'll find today an interesting take on the array of musicals that we love in the world and that were available this year at the Edinburgh Fringe. Let's start proceedings with, well, a discussion on two totally different shows, and you'll see immediately with the first one why it's a variant on a traditional theme. I spoke to David Delaire, and I must declare an interest here, he's an old friend of mine, but he was working on the production of the London Gay Man's Chorus, who had brought a musical, not a choir show, not a choral show, but a proper musical, up to Edinburgh called, and get this, Little Shop of Homos. And I don't think I need to explain to you what the source material there's going to be. And so you can immediately see how today's theme starts by a variant on a well-known musical. And later in the discussion, we'll be talking about the speech marks, straight close speech marks, by which I mean much more standard production, of Sunday in the Park with George by Stephen Sondheim. This was put on by the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Dance and was the Scottish premiere of that 1984 musical. And it was the one show that everybody was talking about, really. In queues you could hear people talking about it, casual conversations I had with people I didn't know, everyone was talking about Sunday in the Park with George. And for me, how that ties in with today's discussion on variant and variation and vision is, well, you'll hear in the discussion. The text of the piece, the book of the piece, gives you very limited scope to do anything with it. So you'll hear in the discussion I had with David whether we thought that the director had been able to deliver a new vision based on a standard text, or whether he had been unable to do that. And so that's how variation and vision will be discussed in the context of Sunday in the Park with George. So when are you going to hear that first interview? Well, there's no time like the present, and so here we go. You're listening to Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
My name is David Delaire, and my involvement with my show is I stepped in as a technical director for the move into the theatre in Edinburgh. The actual director of the show couldn't come.
But the show is?
The show is The Little Shop of Homos, which is being done by the London Gay Men's Chorus small group called Far From Kansas. So I stepped in for that director, but I have had artistic reign to sort of make changes, which I did do. I did make a few changes to some of the dialogue and fixed up some of the bits and pieces of scene work. Some of the scenes were a bit dragging on, so they need to be fixed up a bit. So we did a little bit of that and changed tiny bits of choreography and whatnot. And
so a scene director is... Yes, I mean, that's such an interesting term, and it's not one I've come across before. So,
yeah.
So you're saying it's a tweaker, is it?
Yeah. I think actually I was thinking about it last night, about what exactly, if I was in a program, what would my name be? Yeah. And I think I would call myself a I would be a sort of cleanup director, so cleaning up the not necessarily that it needed to be cleaned up,
You're not the vision
someone
man.
else's work.
Yeah.
I know I'm not the vision man, but I am cleaning up someone else's work.
So you're a finesser.
I guess so, yeah. So I was watching the rehearsals, and because the director was in rehearsals for the last week or so, and I was there as well, I couldn't do anything then. But when I got here, because he wasn't with us, I was able to kind of say, okay, this scene is not working. It's flat. There's nothing. There's no life to the scene. This line doesn't work. This isn't working. So I got to actually sort of, in a few places, restage the scenes as well.
So you have actually had a fairly creative input.
Yeah.
It's not just tucking and tailing and inserting flap A into slot C.
No, because I was originally told, it would be sort of working on the light, getting the lights sorted and getting the sound stuff sorted and whatever. And I did do all of that as well, but I actually ended up doing a lot more with the scope of the show as well, which they told me I had free reign to do. So yeah, and it was an interesting for me to do because it was someone else's work, but I quite liked it. I like watching what's going on and then figuring out what needs to be fixed and fixing it.
And do you think you're able to do that whilst wearing, if you like, the guise of the main director, or do you feel that people can tell it will be a different scene, or does it feel cohesive?
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't think they will be able to tell. I think it just
are in their
cleaned
shoes.
it up. Yeah.
So tell us about the show itself.
The show itself is it's pretty hilariously funny, actually. It's a very witty script. They do it all themselves, and they base it around the music that they'll add in a few new songs, but they try to base it around some of the music that the group already knows. So some of their standard hits that they use, and
hits from the chest.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's very loosely. Sometimes they wedge it in there. And it feels a little bit kind of, like, oh, you're just having that. Like, for example, they're doing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And the show is about a department store, and it's the little shop of homos, and so it's a homosexual department store. But they've decided,
well, darling, of course,
yeah, of course, and they've decided that because it's because of metrosexuals, straight gentlemen who like to now dress rather gaily, they've decided that they have to open up their shop to the metrosexuals because of the credit crunch, because they're not getting all the metrosexuals are going to regular shops now to get all their stuff done. So they have to open up their shop doors, kind of thing. And so every department has some sort of witty name associated with it. So the what do you call it? The kitchenware department is Deb and Ham are the characters. So it is quite ridiculous, but it's very funny. So Ernest and Jones are the jewelry department, and they're late. And so Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, of course, they sing because it's one of their standard hits, but that is the entrance of Ernest and Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all like kind of loosely patched together, but it's really, really well done, very witty.
But this is such an unusual idea because obviously when I see anything with the word choir in it, I assume I'm going to see what I'd see at the Albert Hall, which is lots of people standing in a straight line or in some kind of formulaic rank.
Yeah.
Singing song after song.
Yeah.
Probably unaccompanied in my head. And then everyone will clap and then all go home.
Yeah.
This has got a narrative, at least, or if possibly not. We may not be talking Pulitzer Prize-winning book, but there is some kind of development, some kind of...
Yeah. It's a proper musical. It's a musical.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's a proper musical. There's solos, there's chorus numbers. There's a lot of chorus numbers, obviously, because that's what they do best. But no, it's the small choir, so they're able to... It's all choreographed, they do dances. It's a proper musical.
So give us some of the other songs.
Some of the other songs. Macho. It's apparently a big hit from the 80s.
Yes, it is.
But I don't know.
So
macho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
What else is there? There's Little Shop of Homos, horrors, and the lyrics changed to one of the lyrics being "We don't stock any nasty chinos." Yeah. What else is there? There's
and all those metrosexuals are really in-betweeners. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nice work if you can get it. Suddenly Seymour. To which there's a little twist. It's not actually sung the way it's meant to be sung. So it's a pun on one of the characters needing glasses. Oh. Yeah.
Yes. I can see where that's going already.
Yeah. So
presumably you followed up with "I Want Your Specs" by George Michael.
Of course. Yeah, so there's quite a few now, It's really well done.
It's an eclectic mix hung together.
A very eclectic mix.
Well hung together, is it?
Yeah. That would be a good review, actually.
But you've been doing remarkably well. You've sold out, have you not? At least on your first
We
night?
sold out last night. Yeah,
Which
first
was your
night.
first, yeah.
There were 2 empty seats next to me, and that was it. The rest of the place
Do you
was
know what that
packed.
says about you?
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. I was actually worried about annoying people taking notes as well, so it ended up working out well because there was no one sitting next to me. So there.
And it's had good advance, so really it's a case if people want to see it, they should book now.
They should, yeah.
What
yeah.
are the details?
Yeah. Say that again?
What are the details? Where are you?
What are the details? We're at the C venues. We're in +3 in the C venue. So
That's
up
in
on
Chamber Street.
Yeah, Chamber Street, yep, up on the 3rd floor. It's at 6 o'clock, so it's until Saturday. So
That's
it's
a
running
long
through
show.
the week.
You mean it's an hour every day until Saturday?
Every day until Saturday, yeah. 6 till 7. In fact, we have to make a few cuts today because it's a little over the hour. And if we don't cut it down, then we're going to get in trouble from the...
Yes. You get fined if you overrun, don't you, in an Edinburgh venue?
Yeah.
A lot of people are telling me that.
Yeah.
It's been a good discipline.
Yeah.
But it went down well then, did it, last night?
It went down very well. And I mean, audiences are different every night. So, they'll laugh at things one night that they won't the next night or whatnot. But for I was worried because the first half of the show, there's a lot of build-up of what's going to happen. And at that part, they were really into it. They were laughing, they were clapping, they were really, really into it. So I was quite surprised because I thought it would take them a while to get into it and then they'd enjoy the second half. But actually it was the other way around. They really loved the beginning and then, continued to love it throughout.
But got into it at the level. Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But that's not the only musical you've seen at sea, is it?
It's
because
not.
Let me take you into the basement, if you pardon the expression. But once we finish then, let's talk about Sunday in the Park with George.
The basement of the same venue. I went to see it yesterday.
We were in the audience together, although not together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I love the piece and I love the music, and I thought the orchestra was amazing. They played incredibly well.
I had a perfect view of the orchestra from where I was sitting.
Did you?
And the conductor was, I have to say, he was throwing himself around. It was like he was giving himself a workout. It was a very energetic group,
yeah,
and they play with such power and, as you say, gusto.
Yeah,
the violinist was.
She was incredible.
If she'd have gone any faster, she'd have cut her fiddle in half.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Actually, yeah, she was phenomenal. I mean, the French horn was beautiful.
And the music
all of
came
it.
out. It filled the space, but also what I liked about it, I think the same way you did. I was able to hear some of the lower levels of the orchestration, which you don't always hear on the recording.
No, you don't. You're right, actually. And I have to say, the only recording I have of that one is the Bernadette Peters, Mandy Patinkin one, and it's not the most incredible recording of it.
No,
it's not. And you did hear more with the live orchestra, and yeah, I really thought they were amazing.
You thought one or two of the singers weren't quite on?
Yeah,
didn't have the range.
No, I thought. I couldn't. I'm a singing teacher by trade, and I couldn't really figure out what voice type the George was. I couldn't tell whether he was a baritone that sort of had a few high notes that he could access, or whether he was a proper tenor or what. It was a very interesting voice, but I didn't feel like there was any consistency in it. And I was a little bit disappointed with the Dot as well. It sounded to me, she had a voice, definitely, but it sounded to me like she was her voice was a bit tired. She was a really good actress. She was a very good actress.
I was going to say, from my point of view, I was looking at it slightly more holistically, just in the nature of the way I do, because I don't have your skills and talent. And I really enjoyed the performances for the most part. And I thought Dot really was strong.
Yeah.
I also quite liked George's aloofness, if you like. I mean, he was a still point.
Yes.
And a point being the word, of course, under the nature of pointillism and the painting he uses.
Yeah.
But he's a still point in a moving world. And I like the story arc more as I've got older, funny enough. That Act 2 ends with the modern George, also essentially on his own in the park. Yeah. In a world which he's more or less on his own there, so it's not moving, but it's in a world which has moved on. Yeah. So there's lots of parallel and counter-parallel, I think. So, but that's the text again as well. Yeah, yeah. On a personal level, how did you like the direction? I think I enjoyed parts of the second act better than the first act in terms of the direction. Oh, really? Yeah, I did. And yet there's so much more going on in Act 1, I think. There is so much more going on in Act 1, but there was something slightly clunky about it. I'm not a big fan. I'm sort of more of a fan of sort of things that follow through. Yeah. And there was a little bit of
the set changes were a bit clunky. There were blackouts, and there was a bit of like faffing with screens coming on and off and that sort of thing. And I realize it's difficult being in Edinburgh because you can't necessarily fly things in and out and all those sorts of things.
Or know your venue vastly well before you actually get in.
Yeah, exactly. So you you have to find a way to make the show work for moving in 5 minutes and moving out in 5 minutes. It's just the way of the nature of the beast. But so I thought that in a sense those changes were slightly clunky, and there were a few. I enjoyed the fact that the chorus did the changes. So
yes.
That the days are far gone, thank God, of the people wearing black running on and changing things. But
running on, they used to crawl on from my memory. But
well, yeah, exactly. But no, I felt like there was a lack of flow in the first act. It felt a bit clunky. Yeah. It was scene to scene, and I didn't feel a flow. Whereas the second act, it felt a little bit more like there was a tiny bit of a thread going through it. I thought that the party scene was really well directed. I thought that it worked really well. The sort of whole, they
were in a circle moving around, weren't they?
Yeah, that was interesting. And and the girls in roller skates and all that kind of thing.
They were the waitresses,
Yeah.
My problem with it was that I actually think that the way it's written as a piece is it's so limited to what it has to do. It has to relate to the picture.
Yeah.
It has to be set in the French Garden at the end.
Yeah.
And that's all fine and good, and it's well, and it's the text is written well enough to support all of that. So it's a very good piece, and sometimes with his firing vest and lovely. But that doesn't give any director a great deal of scope to impose a new vision.
Yeah.
So we were saying earlier that the Menier, of course, when they did that with projections, found a brand new way of presenting the same story.
Yeah.
If you don't have that luxury, then it's almost, as a director, you're forced into being faintly pedestrian. And so that's my problem with it. It felt a little pedestrian. It didn't feel a million miles away from the original version with Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters that you were talking about.
Yeah.
We've all seen the DVD.
Yeah.
And having seen the DVD, I didn't get the impression that this was straying very far from it.
Yeah.
That was a brand new production, and indeed the Scottish premiere.
Yeah. I mean, being a director, you it's funny because Sunday in the Park with George is not on the top of my list of things that I would like to direct someday.
No.
And not because I don't love it, and because it's one of my favorite musicals. I think it's an incredible piece. But for the very reason that when I think about shows I want to direct, the ones that appeal to me the most are the ones that I can do something with from my own imagination.
The vision you can impose.
Yeah.
And it is difficult to see where you'd put this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday in the Park with George in Moscow isn't going to work, is it?
Possibly not. Yeah. It would be worth an experiment, but possibly not.
No, I'm not backing you, let's put it that way.
I don't take offence.
Well, David, I wish you every success with Little Shop of Homos, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're listening to Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Red, orange, bum, 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 bum.
And that was David Dallaire giving us his views on Little Shop of Homos, a production that he was involved in, and Sunday in the Park with George. Now, I didn't get to see that first show, but I did get to see the second one, and as I said in that conversation, it was beautifully done, it was very competently done, but it didn't seem a million miles away from the original Broadway production, which of course we've all seen on television or on DVD, and in some senses was extremely reminiscent. So whilst the performances were highly enjoyable, and I very much liked the woman I saw playing Dot, and the orchestra was fantastic, the direction, I felt, let it down a bit. And of course you might say, well, there's not much you can do with a book like Sunday in the Park with George, but I'd have to say that the Menier Chocolate Factory version a couple of years ago says that's not the case. They had been able to come up with a new take on it using new theatre techniques, and so it was a little unfortunate that we hadn't, on this occasion, been given the chance to see something original like that. So, variation not as strong as it might be there. In fact, lack of variation letting the show down. Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast. Well, that's not going to be the case with the next show we discuss. Sweet Charity, a famous show by Cy Coleman and Dorothy Fields from the late 60s, early 70s, and very much of its era. What was different about this version in Edinburgh? Well, it was a gay version. And I thought, what a really interesting idea, because when you sit down and think of it, so much of the social mores, shall we say, the moral context, the social context that was in place when Sweet Charity was first written applied to women, particularly women of easy virtue, because it's pretty clear that essentially Charity, the central character, is a prostitute, or at least a woman of easy virtue. And so much of the position taken moralistically in the original piece just doesn't hold water today. It doesn't work very well as a contemporary piece. It's a brilliant musical, it's just not very appropriate for 11 years into the new century. But by making the central character Charity a man, and a gay man at that, you reopen that world. Because whilst obviously social situations are moving on immensely, there is still a great deal of prejudice in relation to homosexuality. And that's what this show was looking to explore. So, in my view, a really brilliant conceit, a really brilliant variation on the original. Now, so much of the following discussions you'll hear will relate to the audience on those days. And I don't mind telling you that it was a very odd experience sitting in the audience seeing that show. And apparently, it wasn't just the night I went, it happened on several occasions. The odd thing about it was, it's a fairly raunchy show, and this version has young, essentially male go-go dancers appearing on stage in little more than jockstraps, dancing. Well, there were two kinds of people in the audience. There were the people there who wanted to see the show for what it was, which is a gay reworking of a classic, who were there to appreciate the text in its new guise, who were there to understand and enjoy the show. And then there seemed to be a group of teenage performers, for the most part, who were, I have to say, slightly drunk, and just seemed to be there for an expectation of titillation, and were yelping and screaming and basically ruining, I have to say, the enjoyment of the show for everybody else. And regrettably, they were not a small minority. They were large enough to really cause trouble for the rest of the audience. And very demoralising it was for us, and more so for the crew and cast. Now, I spoke to the man who came up with the concept of the gay Sweet Charity, Richard Green, the director, after the performance which I saw, which was relatively early on in the run. And that's the interview you're going to hear now. So you'll get to hear about how he came up with this idea of variation from the original text. And the absolute star, despite the difficulties with the audience, was the young man playing Charity. His name is Max Gallagher, and I can't tell you how good he was. He was excellent, and it's a big part for any actor or actress. So, you'll hear first Richard Green, and then you'll hear an interview with Max Gallagher about this gay version of Sweet Charity. Musical Talk.
Right, I'm Richard Green and I'm director of the company, and I sort of got the concept of the show.
And that's the very thing I want to talk most about. Now, this is a gay version of Sweet Charity.
That's indeed, yes.
And it's fantastic. It's a really good idea, and in some ways, I think better than the original idea, in the sense that it was fine. It was the original Sweet Charity is fine for the 60s.
Yeah.
But so much of what makes life difficult for charity just doesn't hold water today. Whereas actually taking it into a gay environment is brilliant. It brings back those prejudices, and some of the songs actually make more contextual sense, in my view. So first of all,
I agree with you. I agree.
Really good idea. But how did you come? How did this start? Where did the idea come from?
Well, I've thought for years that Charity is a gay character. In fact, the whole concept has a gay feel to it. The bit I'm most pleased with,
yes,
and it's a very simple bit, is the bit where she does brass band, and she takes Oscar takes her back to home, because it shows that Oscar has there's a reason there for Oscar to ditch her.
Yes.
Because he'll go into saunas, he'll go costume, he'll do all those sort of things, but ostensibly he wants to appear as a normal man.
That's
but
right.
Getting married to Charity breaks that down. He can't, and that's what he can't face.
And you show very cleverly, I think, that the fact that his family reject him, they turn his back on him, and his workmates reject him, and he's given the sack, I think, essentially.
Yes,
he's given
yes.
his notice. Yes.
Yeah.
So he has all to lose.
Yes.
So he is put in an almighty predicament.
Yes, and I thought that this rings much more true to today than the original.
And some of the songs, I have to say, I really liked. The Rhythm of Life, which would be quite a difficult thing to carry off today, sort of that kind of evangelical, bought-in American religion, works really well within the confines of basically an orgy going on in the background.
Yes,
it's
a sauna.
the sexual rhythms, really, which are, if you're not, the rhythms of life.
Yeah.
So that worked really well.
I always feel with the Rhythm of Life in the original show that they'd got a really good song there, but they just planted it in the show. It never really fits properly.
It's a good old bolt-on, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, why would Oscar take her to a somewhere like that? It seemed odd. Whereas doing it the way we did, there seemed to be a natural feel that gay men do go to saunas.
It's been known, I believe, yes.
Yes, hasn't it? Yes.
So you had the idea. When did you... well, you say you've had it for a long time. When did it start getting towards a show?
About 3 years ago.
Oh, right. So it's been a few years gestation, as well.
Yes, it took me a while to... I mean, the script is exactly the same script, but it has got quite a few cuts in it to make it...
It's an Edinburgh show. It has to have cuts in it, doesn't it?
Indeed. But
it boils down to about 1 hour 15 here?
About that, yeah. But, I mean, I'm really pleased. The only thing that I find really difficult to cope with are the audiences.
What have they been like? Different every night?
Yeah, well, tonight's was particularly bad.
Yes.
In the sense that it was rather like seeing the pantomime of Sweet Charity. They were juvenile the way they were laughing, as though they'd never seen a man's body before.
I think I should explain exactly. There were two audiences in tonight, essentially. There were the people who wanted to see this for what it was, and were really engaging with the story. Yeah. And then there seemed to be a whole group of people who... Well, I have to say, for the most part, I think young actors who were here doing other shows, who had a few to drink. And as you say, we're treating the whole thing as though it was a huge joke, and we're chirping and talking and wolf whistling and laughing inappropriately. So the whole thing for them appeared to be a great comedy. And as you say, how hilarious it is to see someone wearing nothing but a jockstrap or a towel. Yeah. And of course, it's actually incidental to the plot. There's a narrative arc, and it's an emotional narrative arc, which I don't think they brought into at all.
No.
So have you had similar on other nights?
Well, we only opened last night, but the only time it was like that was the Rhythm of Life when they stripped off. And
it's a fairly provocative scene in one sense.
And you can see that to some extent. I can understand it. But I just think that they go a little bit over the top over it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for the actors to pull that back.
Well, let's talk about your cast, because I'm going to go straight for your charity. Who is that?
Max Gallagher.
Well,
yes.
He'll go far. In my view, I mean, it's a big ask anyway, charity, isn't it? I mean, it's always been a showpiece.
Yeah.
In London, it comes to London whenever a particularly good leading actress is looking for a vehicle. Yeah. I'm thinking Bonnie Langford here.
Yes,
and not only Bonnie Langford. So, you're on stage practically all the time.
Yeah.
If not all the time. And you've got, most of the songs and the emotional journey. It's actually a very single-person piece. Everything else is frankly incidental.
Well, yes.
How did you find him?
He was an ex-student of mine, and he's now at Rose Bruford Theatre School, and he's talented. For the last 3 years, I thought he would make an ideal charity. He's just got that sort of look.
Yes, I mean it's innocence, but it's also knowing.
Yes.
He can even do the bevel, let's be honest.
Yes.
I was going to say he's got the physicality of the character, as well as the emotional heart. Yes, no, I in that sense, I think he was remarkably stunning. And your Vittorio, because now Vittorio is such an odd part, because really only on for 15 minutes in total, would you not say? I thought this was exactly the same when I saw it in London years ago. It has quite often gets a star cast. Yeah. They come in, they do their bit for 15 minutes, and that's that. You don't see them again to the the walk down.
Yeah. I wanted somebody for Victoria who was very good looking.
Yes.
And could
be a film star kind of thing.
He looks like a film star. Somebody that a gay audience would identify with as well.
Yeah.
There'll be a load of great gay men in this audience tonight who would say,
A bit of alpha maleism.
Yes, I've got fancy him.
Have a slice of that.
Yes.
And although you have characters, he's got Charity's friends, his two friends.
Yes.
But it's a nice ensemble piece. I mean, once you take...
and Oscar as well. I mean, I was very pleased with him.
And he comes on really for the last third, in a way,
Yes, he does. And as I say...
He does Neurotic New York very well, your actor.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? Yes. But, but he does understand... He more than any of the actors understands what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, well, Max does as well.
Yeah.
Max
But
understands.
they really bring something to those characters.
Yes.
They bring the humanity, because you could easily slip into caricature or cartoon almost.
Yes,
There
which is
wasn't- yeah.
originally that's how it was perceived as a cartoon. If you remember, it had flashing signs up above saying her thoughts, like big bubbles coming out.
Is this in the very original
Yeah.
sort of Gwen Verdon?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. I've only got the soundtrack, of course.
Oh,
so-
right, yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, well, in which case, I think they're underselling their story. There was a lot of that going on in the 60s. I mean,
Yes, yes.
It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman by Charles Strauss.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot of it is quite nice. But everything is being sort of sent up in the Batman, TV Batman style. funnily enough.
Yes, and that actually destroys the pathos of the story to some extent.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's an attempting to get people to buy in, but on the wrong footing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't do that. I have to say, because it's very clear there's a genuine emotional heart to the story, and it's very clear that's coming.
Well, I
across.
genuinely believe in it,
Yeah.
and I think that may come through.
I bet if you were in a different venue, you would have a
Yes.
totally different audience
Yes.
and the right audience.
Yes,
with it.
yeah.
Just let's talk about the text of the piece, the narrative. You say it's exactly the same text. Did
Yes.
you not have to change or tweak anything at all?
No, not really. No,
Really?
no,
It is
yes.
it's
Yeah, even
it's the
to,
playbook.
even to the names, because I said, well, gay men do have
Oh, indeed. Yes.
female names, so there's no reason
It's
why
an
you should-
affectionate pet thing, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can't call them Nicky and Helen. Yes, that
Yeah.
would do. So and girls get your asses on the stage, whatever it says. Yeah, it would say that. That's the sort of thing it would say.
And she also, I have to say, it's I suppose it comes from the same area of repressed society in one sense,
Yeah.
because she, Charity in the original is a calling girl, shall we say?
Yeah.
She's definitely working class and quite low at the
Yeah.
bottom of that ladder
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
And looked down upon by society.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true also of the the gay ghettos. And,
Yeah,
and certainly at the time.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I can and there's like so many shared groups who are both all get prejudice, can find common ground.
Yeah.
So I can see that, Dorothy Fields. I mean, let's talk about the score and the lyrics and the music. I mean, it's a cracking score.
It's a great
There's
score.
not a bad song in the piece anyway,
No,
is it?
no.
How are you with directing musicals?
I've done quite a few of my
Yes,
time. Yes,
you know the rhythm. In fact,
yes, yeah.
Because obviously it's such a quick turnaround here at Edinburgh. I mean, it was a recorded background, wasn't it? Because it had to be, presumably.
Yes. What do you mean a recorded background?
Was there actually a pianist in the
Oh,
background?
yes, yes.
Oh, I
was-
do apologise.
Yes,
I
no.
assumed it was all pre-recorded. I couldn't see.
No,
them.
no, we had a pianist there.
Oh, I'm pleased. I'm delighted to hear that, because
Yeah.
that does make it the better.
Yeah.
And it also allows for a proper connection between the cast and the
yeah,
music. Yeah.
Yes. And that was needed.
Yeah. It's a big dance thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of
There is- yes,
movement. Let's
yes.
put it that way.
And I'm very lucky to have good girls, but also very good boys,
Yes.
which is very useful, very helpful.
Not all men can dance. It's
No,
true.
absolutely not. That makes it sound a bit sexist, but it's true.
How did you find your cast?
How did most of them have been students of mine that have worked with me over the years, and have not grown up with me, because obviously I'm much older than they are, but I've nurtured them.
And in what context was this?
In what way do you mean?
Which school or group were you with?
Well, I run a school.
Oh, right, 'cause I'm afraid I don't have a programme, you see, so
No,
I don't know those details.
I run my own drama school, and
right, okay.
and they all come to it. And so-
Marvellous, right, okay.
Okay,
so-
and I mean, I'm openly gay with them, and they know that, and quite a large proportion of the cast are gay.
Yes, I imagine that might happen.
Yes.
It's been known in the theatrical circles, yes.
So I think that was actually quite important that we did have that, because there's an empathy there then.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I everything that helps to make one understand one's character will always work nicely.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wish you every success for the
Thank
rest
you.
of the run.
Yeah.
I hope your audience is settled down, certainly, I tell you, because you outside, it was very clear that the audience were falling into two camps.
Yes,
There were
absolutely.
two groups of people, the ones who just came out bleating and screaming and yelping, as though, as I say, as though it was all new.
Yeah.
And then there were the people here who
Yeah.
are theatre lovers and wanted to see the story.
It was disappointing that there was that other contingent in.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mind them laughing, and I don't mind them big applause, but not all the way through.
And not to disturb it for the other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big problem. Oh, well, however, conceptually, I think you have a very good idea here. So don't be put off by this. Please give this one legs, because there's more for the Gay Sweet Charity than this.
Thanks very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Musical Talk.
I'm playing the title character of Sweet Charity,
And your name?
Max Gallagher.
A name to remember, I think. Because, well, let us start with the character of Charity.
Yes,
It's a big old act.
it is. Obviously, Shirley MacLaine did it in the film, and then there was that revival in the West End last
Bonnie
year.
Langford did it a few years
Yeah,
ago.
she did, yeah.
And Gwen Verdon originally.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you're on stage all the time.
Yeah, I have about Baby Dream Your Dream is the only time when I can go and stood in the wing, and that's when I have my dose of H2O, but that's the only point of it. But yeah, it's brilliant. But I think in some ways that's easier, because once you get off stage, you get out of it, you're all over the place. And I think it's less stressful when you're on stage. The wings are the nightmare of the show, aren't they? And it's so tiny, our wings. So it's good.
You're in the basement here at Sea,
Yes,
aren't you?
exactly,
Which is
yeah. It's
notorious.
Yes, but it's still a brilliant theatre.
Yeah, lovely
really.
comfy seats for the audience.
Yeah.
I don't mind telling you. Yeah, it's quite. I've been on a few spikes this
Yeah.
week. I don't mind telling you. Yeah. So what you're saying is it allows you to stay in the bubble. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
yeah.
actually really interesting. So you don't see that as a kind of problem. You see it as an advantage.
No, I like it because you have that continuity throughout the full play. So more or less, as soon as the dun 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 starts at the beginning, I don't really have a time to just sit in the dressing room and think about Scrabble or something. I don't know anything,
can't
but
fester
no,
on
exactly.
anything either, yeah.
Completely Charity Hope Valentine.
Now, let's talk about your interpretation of the character. Now, this
Yes.
is a gay version of Sweet Charity.
It is.
And it's such a clever idea. I'm really amazed it hasn't been done previously.
Yeah.
And the fit is perfect as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I think it's a better fit than the original version. Well, I really do, because certainly in this day and age, all that business about, it's the social mores of the 60s and the film just don't hold up here.
No.
And whereas, there's still prejudice against gay men and women.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Charity is a film. It's a gay piece. You come on, not in drag per se, but you're half and half, really, isn't it? You're dressed you're enough to be convincing as a woman briefly.
Exactly, yeah. Throughout rehearsals, it was always a question of, oh God, am I a boy? Am I a boy trying to be a girl? Is it drag or anything? And I think I came to the conclusion of the fact that, no, I'm a boy.
Yeah.
Just craving attention, being mischievous, loving people. He's one of those who likes a reaction.
Yeah.
So, he likes to create a stir. He likes stirring things. So, he enjoys going out there with the wig, the coat and that lot.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The red coat, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Dark
like,
specs and...
today when I was handing out flyers around Edinburgh, as you do,
Yes.
I felt really like him, because this is what he would do, just go out into Edinburgh with a coat and with a wig and a beret, of course, but that flew off in the wind, so that wasn't, I had to cross the road and catch it. I didn't get run over, but still. It's interesting.
So what I'm really interested in is you as an actor. You've been presented with this piece, and you've been told it's a reinterpretation of the text. So he's a gay man. How much have you influenced the part? How much have you brought to him? How much is the director? Where is the fusion of his character?
Well, I'm 20, and I've known Richard since I was about 13.
Oh, right.
And
Richard the director?
Richard Green, yeah. Before, I've been at drama school for 2 years, but I've always known that he's wanted to do this. This has always been something that he's wanted to do. I can remember years ago him saying, oh, you'd be brilliant as Charity. But, I was a bit young then. So then I've gone to drama school for 2 years, and then he texted me saying about whether you could do it. And I've always wanted to go to the Edinburgh Festival, so to be in a show at the Edinburgh Festival was a brilliant opportunity for me. So I took it there. And it was a bit of a rush rehearsal process, because I was in Rose Bruford. But no, we got there and we did the show in Hull. Then I had to go back to London for 2 weeks. So in a way, I was a naughty actor. I didn't keep going over my lines and stuff on my own. I was moving house and teaching and stuff like that. So
the rhythm of life
got
in the way, rather.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So I was worried about being a bit behind. But no, as soon as you get involved, I'm back with the cast. I'm back with the people. Back in Edinburgh, just the buzz. You instantly get back into it. So it was great.
But the creation of the character,
yes.
I mean, it's written the way it's written, and Richard told me that he hadn't changed any text.
No.
Which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
So you were saying you had to find out, you determined that Charity is a boy, he's happy being a boy, but he's got his affectionate mates, and there's that touch of femininity that comes with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because a great many gay men have that. So.
Yeah. It was funny, really, because Richard kept saying, I can tell that you've been to drama school, because in the first few weeks of rehearsal, or should I say first week, he kept saying, no, you're doing it too Harold Pinter. Too Harold Pinter. I was doing it, trying to be, I'm a gay boy in this musical, but, seriously, there are gay people out there, but then
Troubled
it doesn't...
and drawn.
Yeah, exactly, just too much, too serious, too... At the end of the day, it's a musical, and it's camp, it's funny, and it's not Harold Pinter.
but isn't... Sorry, no, carry on. I'm interested.
No, I was just going to say, especially doing it now at C venues, the audience's reaction constantly, at some points they're making more noise than us. So in a way, you wouldn't even be able to do Harold Pinter. They feed the embrace in the campness of it, the heightened text of it. And it was funny because last night there was a guy on the front row waiting for all the famous lines. And his reactions were as if to say, God, it does work. That does actually work. You've got these famous songs, these lines, and every time we did it, it was pleased that it works, because it does. It works.
Now, Charity's a hopeless, but, I say hopeless, actually, that's not true. A hopeful optimist.
Yeah.
She's very loving, he's very loving. He's always being hurt. And so he's got just enough of a veneer, like a sweet. He's a soft centre.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a crisp shell around the outer side. How much of you is Charity? Is that a rude question?
No,
Are you
no.
an optimist, sir? Are you?
Am I an optimist? What do you mean, optimist?
Are you? Right, okay. I mean, it seems to me that Charity's in a fairly dead-end job, in a job that she doesn't... It's only through her friends that she's keeping her head above water. She's constantly looking for the way out through love, and she doesn't get it. And yet it hasn't driven her to depression. It hasn't driven her to despair.
Pick yourself up and start all over again. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, I'm definitely...
And Dorothy Fields.
Yes.
Oh, you're staying with the right lyricist.
I've done my research, goodness me. I think I'm definitely one of those. I take it day by day.
I guess you mean in the way to live rather than the selling your body in the way that Charity does.
No, I don't quite do that. No.
Rude point.
No, it's fine. I'm not into all the what's it called? That practitioner where you what is it? That where you embrace the part. That's going to really annoy me. All the not Stanislavski method acting. Where if you're a taxi driver, you go out and be.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But
I've
not been in a.
You've not been on the corner.
No.
But you are an optimist, and so you can draw from yourself very much into the character.
Yeah, exactly. Life's a bitch, and then you marry one, as they say. So
there are ways of avoiding that.
Yeah, well, true. So no, I definitely see that part of him. But then again, I don't think I'm as flamboyant and brave as he is, I suppose, because obviously you're putting yourself on the line when you're going out dressed as a woman. And, I felt it today, going around with flyers. It was
But you just told me you do it, but I don't suppose you don't do it on a daily basis, yeah?
No. What do you mean, do what?
Well, you did. You went up and handed out flyers.
Yeah,
in the costume
you're right.
today,
Yeah.
That small amount of it, you have actually done it.
Yeah, I suppose. But that's all in the name of art.
Do you like Charity as a character?
Yes. I didn't know the musical at all before I started doing it. Barnum was the only Cy Coleman show that I know. We've just done it.
The difference, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just done it at Rose Bruford, a number from it.
What were you in that?
Well, no, we didn't do the show of Barnum. We
Studied it.
yeah, we do actor musician. Well, I'm an actor musician, so we all had our instruments and we arranged "Come Follow the Band" and just did a few numbers from it. So yeah, God, where was I going with that? Put me on track.
We were talking about you said that you didn't know Sweet Charity as a musical, so you came to it fresh.
Yes, I did.
Well, that must be quite helpful in a way, because
Yeah.
you're not trapped by the past.
No, Richard said don't watch the film because it's nothing like the film.
Yeah.
But in the first few days, I was just like, I just did not have an overall picture at all. It was so confusing. Not only, it would have been confusing going in as a normal, the normal version of Sweet Charity. So to do with this version,
the straight version.
yeah, exactly. So to do it with this version, I was very confused about it all. So I did watch the film, but only once. But that put me on path. But as I say, it's nothing like that. So
It's funny because Charity is a kind of ingenue character, sort of a sweet innocent at large in the world.
yeah,
Even though she's in this situation where innocence could very easily be lost.
yeah.
And you portray that very well. You do have there's a kind of sort of bright-eyed spring in your step.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me saying, you have a very winning smile. So all the way through, even though you're trying to build up your hopes and then they get dashed because all men are bastards.
Yep.
And goodness knows that's true. And yet you keep this spring in your step. You really do bring Charity life from top to tail,
Yeah.
from beginning to end.
Well, this is it, because in rehearsals, as I say, they hold Harold Pinter, because at the end of the day, I see the show. The first half is more like camp, musical theatre, happy, but then the second half, like some of the last scenes between Oscar and Charity, are very serious and very poignant, and if done right, they can be really moving. But when you've had the audience's reactions from the first few numbers, such as Hey Big Spender and Rhythm of Life, to try and bring that back as an actor and play the fact that, this is an actual this is an actual character who someone could be like him out in the world, and it's quite tragic, really. So to try and bring that element of seriousness to the scenes is very hard when you've got the audience in
who were
tatters.
misunderstanding it, essentially. I think I've said before, the audience were very much in two halves. There were a lot of people there who were there for the emotional journey, which is what the piece is about.
Yeah.
And goodness knows, it's got a lot of heart, the piece as written and as performed. And then there were a whole group of people who I think were slightly drunk, who were there for the camp, the titillation, I have to say.
Yeah.
And missing the point that the titillation was not what it was about. That's merely addressing for the circumstance and the context.
Yeah.
And who were talking throughout and laughing.
Yeah.
And that, as an actor, how do you face that? Because
Yeah.
you've got to stay true. If an audience wants it to be played as a silly old piece of camp and they're only prepared to accept it on that level, but you know that you're playing it for real and for the emotional truth.
Yeah.
You can't change horses, can you?
No, exactly. Like tonight, I was thinking, God, do you go against what you want to do and what you've strived towards achieving in rehearsal and play up to the audience, or do you persevere with what you want to hopefully get across and try and get the emotional journey, the straightness of it? And it's so hard, and I find it so tempting to break the fourth wall and to play up to the audience, just because that's why we're doing it. Actors love the attention and to get trapped in the atmosphere of the theatre, which is brilliant. I mean,
when it works properly, doesn't it? It's the most rewarding. It's a virtuous circle for everyone involved.
Yeah, and this is our second night. Both nights, the atmosphere in the theatre has just been brilliant. So it is hard to quieten them down and to say, look, this is the actual dialogue. This is what was meant behind the dialogue. Pay attention and watch it. Stop laughing.
Yeah, quite right, if you don't mind me saying. Let's talk briefly about the score.
Yep.
You have a finger in pretty much every song.
Yes.
Any favourite? Because there's a lot of hits in that, if you don't mind me. There's no duds. I'm just sorry your opening number has been had to be curtailed slightly.
Yeah.
Because that's a great number, and I'd love to have seen you do it.
What number
Before
is
Big
this?
Spender, there's Look at Me Now, isn't it?
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's been trimmed down a bit, presumably for time purposes.
Yeah, no, and it's always been like that. I've never done... there's quite a lot of songs that have been cut. Oscar doesn't have any songs. But then again, that's the Edinburgh Festival for you. We've got a time restraint. The full script has been cut down because it's quite a long show, really.
It's a 2-actor, 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
In London,
And I suppose cutting down the elevator scene, which is a brilliant scene, would have been a nightmare. But yeah, the score. And as I'm a pianist, I've MD'd shows before and that lot, so I know about cutting music and stuff like that. And it must be so hard cutting, a show like this that is full of brilliant songs. It's like home, and it's brilliant. I love Barnum. It's one of my favourite shows. So in a way, I'm glad that I've been introduced to this brilliant show.
So how do you find the music then? As someone who's, because you're an actor and sing, and you're a musician and player, you come at it from both angles. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, in my first rehearsals, I just said, this is too low, because it's written in a key for women.
Of course.
So you either do it at the pitch of which a woman would sing, which is just ridiculous, because we're men.
Yeah, you're
do
not
it down.
You're
No,
not doing falsettos.
no, goodness me, no. So, for example, if my friends could see me now, I was doing it down the octave, as you would imagine, but it was so low that we had to mess around with the transposition of the key to fit it for my voice. You got things to think about. Will it cross across? Will my voice carry across the theatre? We're not mic'd. Only today we decided to raise the transposition of brass band, because last night I go, he loves me. Somebody loves me. Somebody loves me. Somebody loves me, and it just wasn't working. So we had to up that a bit. Hey Big Spender. In rehearsals, we were like, oh no, it's nice being in a low key because it's CD. And the minute you walked in, a giant
smoky,
yeah, exactly.
dive feel, isn't it? Yeah.
But we've raised that because it's tiring. It's tiring on the voice.
Yeah. Particularly if you're not naturally in the range. So what are you naturally? A baritone? A tenor?
Yeah, baritone. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a tenor.
But with tenor tendencies.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a lyrical. I've got very. I tend to do. Rodgers and Hart, and those kind of songs.
You said the right words.
Yeah,
Rodgers and Hart.
Yes,
brilliant.
Those.
Rodgers and Hammerstein, bad.
Yeah. Well, I prefer Rodgers and Hart.
I'm not going to ask you to confirm.
No, goodness me. But no, those lyrics, My Funny Valentine, stuff like that. That's the kind of songs that I've sung before. With Richard, I did a tour of a Rodgers and Hart review, and that was one of.
Did you know?
Yeah, around Yorkshire, and that was brilliant. Just like you said, the songs of Rodgers and Hart are brilliant.
Well, I'm going to pay you the compliment of saying that I think you're an absolutely fantastic actor. I think that show...
Thank you.
I mean, it revolves around the character,
yeah.
But you brought that character so firmly to life. There was no void there at the heart. And that's not just in the performing sense, because obviously it's a big sing, it's a big dance, it's a big... But it's also at heart level.
Yes.
I could see when you were being brave in your character, I could see when you were being... bouncy and optimistic. Forgive me, you ran the gamut of the emotional opportunities, and that came across. And for that 50% of the audience who were there for that, I know that you won them over, because I was listening to people in the foyer afterwards.
Yeah.
There were an awful lot of people who were angry that a lot of people seemed to be trying to derail it for you.
Yeah.
But you've caught a lot of attention.
Yeah, which is good. There's 2,500 shows at the Edinburgh Festival, so I think I said this in another interview before, anyone can take a production of Sweet Charity, and I'm sure it would go down well. So to do an interpretation of something different that's not been done before, surely that's better. Matthew Bond did it with Swan Lake, and look how brilliant that was.
And indeed, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's been lots of all-male versions of Gilbert and Sullivan floating around London, and they've all been absolute sellouts.
Yeah.
So yes, you're very much in a trend at the moment.
Yeah,
let me say.
No, definitely. So yeah, I'm glad that. And full house tonight, so roll on more full houses.
Well, I wish you great success.
Thank you very much.
I also look forward to hearing about you again in the future, so I can say I knew him in his early days.
Oh, well, you saw my Edinburgh Festival debut, Scotland debut.
Max, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
That was Richard Green, and then Max Gallagher, the very, very excellent actor in the gay version of Sweet Charity. And all I can say is it's such a disappointment that the audience was so disruptive in many ways, ruining it for the rest of us. Well, we're going to continue our theme of variation, vision and variant. With, this time, and indeed for the next 3 interviews, we're going to take a very established tradition, canon, series of musicals and a very well-known writing partnership, but in each case deal with them in a totally different way. We're talking here about Gilbert and Sullivan. They are always represented at the Edinburgh Fringe in some way, just because, well, let's be honest, A, they're popular, B, they bring in an audience, and C, they're out of copyright. All those things do count. But none of the three shows I'm going to be talking about could be described as being standard Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, because we're going to hear about the Hot Mikado, the concept of which is a swing version of a standard operetta by Gilbert and Sullivan, and therefore is a variant on the expectation, and certainly modern versions of it always seem to be set in the 1940s, in an American-occupied Japan. And then after that, we're going to hear a show that was about Gilbert without Sullivan. So once again, a variant on the theme. You expect Gilbert and Sullivan, who are essentially married in the public's eye, always to be dealt with as that double act, that composing partnership. But there was a show dedicated purely to Gilbert. And then just to make sure that Sullivan wasn't left out, we were given a pre-Gilbert Sullivan operetta called The Zoo. And so the next three interviews are going to take those stalwarts of the British musical, and indeed the fathers of world musicals, through the Gilbert and Sullivan Savoy operas, and hear about three totally different ways of putting them on stage. We start with the Hot Mikado, put on by old friends of this programme, Durham University, who last year did such a fantastic job with The Wild Party by John Michael LaChiusa. Let's hear about their version of the Hot Mikado. You're listening to Musical Talk.
I'm Douglas Gibbs and I'm playing Pooh Bar.
I'm Guy Hughes and I'm producing and playing the Mikado.
I'm Chris Gard and I'm the musical director of the show.
Now, last year Durham did The Wild Party, John Michael LaChiusa piece.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very modern, very up-to-date, although of a historic item. This year you're doing the Hot Mikado, which of course is a modern-ish version of what might be called the daddy of musical theatre. Why the difference? How did you stumble across the Hot Mikado as a piece for this year?
Well, we were trying to assess what worked and what didn't work from last year. And one of the things was that because it was such a modern piece, a lot of people hadn't heard of LaChiusa, and his writing and his style was quite alien to a lot of people. So we were trying to find a style that firstly people could associate with, which is where this sort of the jazz and swing style really came into play, but also a style that people would recognise, which is with the Gilbert and Sullivan. It's as you say, a very well recognised style in musical theatre. So we thought that having those two different aspects musically was a chance to really, really sell the show.
Tradition with a twist, almost.
Yes, yeah.
I think one of the other great things about the Hot Mikado is the broader audience that it appeals to. The Wild Party was a much harder sell because it was later at night. It's only suitable for a certain age range, really. Whereas this year we can very much sell it. We can very much sell it to families as much as anything else. Children absolutely love it, from what we've seen, which is a big bonus at the Fringe, to be able to hit as many people as possible.
But, and I'm looking at you here in relation as musical director, it's quite, Sullivan, fantastic composer, but of his era, set tones, nothing sort of very syncopated at all, or in fact not at all. Hot Mikado, full jazz swing version.
Yeah.
So, how do you find that, both individually as a person, but also how do you generate, I suppose I'm not putting this question at all well, how do you fight what you know is the tradition to take you into a different tradition?
Well, it's very, very interesting actually, because it's not
it
just
better be.
well, it's not just, they don't just tackle the music of the original Mikado in just one way. They choose a whole wide range of styles. There's gospel, soul, swing, blues, all sorts of different ways that accommodate different songs from the original Mikado. There are a couple which are almost extremely similar. There are a couple which start in the original kind of Sullivan kind of style and then kind of merge into the jazz version, very, very cheesily, shall I say? Or,
at times,
but very typically. But it's really interesting. I mean, the moment I heard the show and the original cast recording, I was completely sold on it, because I couldn't think of a way it could have been done better, because often it's very, very dangerous to kind of touch this kind of thing, which is very kind of set in stone with a lot of purists and a lot of GNS guys. But I couldn't think of a way it could have been attacked better, and it was a lot of fun to teach as well, because the lyrics, whilst changed slightly to kind of be updated, for a more modern audience, are still the same, and then applying that to a kind of more kind of modern jazz.
Jive almost, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It was a lot of fun to teach as well, so it's been a real personal achievement for me.
Just quickly then on the orchestrations,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you bring orchestrated jazz to life?
It's
not true improvisation, is it?
Well, it's very, I mean, it's written for a 6-piece jazz band, piano, bass, drums, alto sax, trumpet and trombone. There is a lot of room for improvisation in that, but I'd probably say there's more room for improv from the vocalists than from the band as well. There's a lot of room for people to kind of go to church as well. It actually does say that in the part quite a few times. But yeah, there's also room for the jazz musicians as well to improvise. So it does kind of bring together a lot of the different aspects from jazz. It can't obviously be as improvised because it's musical theatre. You're trying to balance so many things, but there's still a lot of room for the musicians and the vocalists as well to really kind of have a lot of fun with it and make it more interesting every single night.
Which brings us on to the performances on stage. I mean, if you've got a slightly more oomph based score, how do you bring those already heightened characters? How do you push them up a notch or two?
It's definitely quite a farcical show. There's a lot of. I think the main thing for performing it is our energy, really. We've just got to sustain an enormous level of energy throughout, which I think comes across at the moment. But it's extremely hard work. Sorry.
I was going to say something that's quite unique about the show is that although it is a musical, but there are times when there's just music for about 20 minutes. I mean, the Act 1 finale is a great example of that, and it comes from the GNS original, but it's a really, really big sing and dance to be singing non-stop, and it moves. It's not just one big number; it moves seamlessly from one number into the next. So you're having to change the kind of energy from a really, really heightened, enthusiastic chorus number into a solo piece. I'm thinking of the Act 1 finale where we've got the Katish's song,
yes,
Hour of Gladness, which it moves from one really, really heightened chorus piece into the Hour of Gladness, which is a very, very slow ballad song.
It's poignant. Everything
really,
is lost
really, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's times like that where you really need to sort of gauge the energy levels, right. And as you say, the backing of the music is so useful for that, and really creates, as you say, poignant moments in the show.
Now, Hot Mikado and the original Mikado is a comedy in a way that I have to say the Wild Party probably couldn't really be described.
Not quite in the same way.
So how's the comedy element? And this is an open question for everyone, because obviously comedy is as much in the music as it is in the performance.
Very much so. I mean, what's kind of interesting is, although the situation and the story in the original Mikado is, we said, extremely farcical, extra comedy is added in the Hot Mikado in terms of kind of a lot of self-referential stuff, fourth wall breaking, that kind of thing, both musically and in the script as well. So it definitely helps on that.
It really, a lot of the characters are outrageous. Frankly, we've been having an enormous amount of fun with it. The audiences vary, of course. Like if you've got an enormous audience and they're all cheering along and everything, it sort of spurs us on to sort of improvise a little bit. And we've been improvising a few little jokes.
You
and
ride
things
on the bubble of their delight.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly it. And it's a huge amount of fun. And I think it's perfect in that sense, like for just the sort of time that it is and things that we've got as well, for just the audience to come in, have a bit of fun, especially when it's been a rainy day.
Yeah.
And,
well, it is great for the Fringe in that sense, because it makes such a difference to watch performers having so much fun each night. I mean, it's not a professional run. We're all students at Durham University, so it is great for people to come and watch us, just having a great time with what is a great show.
You don't want to sell yourself though, because I thought the Wild Party was a marvellous thing last year.
Oh, of course,
really?
yeah. But what I'm saying is that it's not a professional run in the sense that we're not.
So you're not booked for the West End next week?
No, not yet. No. But I mean, we do have so much fun each night with the performance, changing things around. Just keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
Now, our listeners can't see this, but two of you at least, forgive me, musical director or not, are dressed in American uniforms. Now, as Pooh Bar, you have all the medals that are possible, and that's entirely as it should be. Why have you gone for this particular approach? Because it can be done. I've seen the Mikado played as Elvis. So
Really? Fantastic. That sounds great.
Why this context?
Well, do you think...
Well, Maddie is our director, and she went for a 1940s America style.
It's a time in the music, I suppose.
Yes, yeah.
But it's really nice because it's this fantastic fusion of colourful dresses. The girls are in the three little maids are in these. The three little maids are in these little sort of corsets with sort of oriental patterns that they've sewn onto them and stuff. There's kimonos feature, but at the same time you've got the guys with military boots, white jeans, dog tags, sort of very stylised kind of American Army thing. And I think what she said was the closing scenes of Memoirs of a Geisha, the film. She said that was one of her inspirations stylistically. And it just makes it look extremely fun. Like it makes it look.
It's also got a sort of Pearl Harbor element to it as well.
Does, yeah.
You don't think the fact it's all about Japan in some way?
Yeah, I think at times Maddie was just fantasising over what was the most attractive to watch on stage. She wanted to try and pick out her ideal Mikado, and I think a 1940s American US Army figure was probably that. So.
Mikado's such an odd character in the Mikado because he doesn't really turn up until the second.
I've noticed that.
You do a bit of mad things, and then everyone else has to live with it.
Yeah.
Really. Although you do, I suppose, in a way, sort of resolve it by pardoning everyone. So.
Yes. Yeah, he is a bit of
as
a
performer, I always found Mikado such an odd character. So
it's a very strange character because it seems it's really the character that Gilbert decides to sort of conclude the storyline with. So in terms of trying to create a through line in his objectives and his thought process throughout his performance although it is only sort of the last 15 minutes, it's quite difficult because. On the one hand, he rocks up and he says, right.
He rocks up.
He literally rocks up, and says, okay, I need to find my son. Where's my son? You've killed my son. Okay. I'm not. His reaction is incredibly funny because he's not really particularly upset about it. He toys with them and says, well, unfortunately, you've killed my son, so you're going to have to be executed, and that's all rather funny. And then
because that wonderful line, isn't it? Would after lunch suit you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So his son then turns up at the end, and Gilbert gives us the great line. Well, nothing can be more satisfactory. So that's the way that he ties it up, and I think it is strange to play that part because it's there's no sort of coherence in his actions, but you just sort of take all that with a pinch of salt with the Gilbert and Sullivan story.
And I think Guy rather enjoys just turning up for about sort of 2/3 of the way through the show, us having warmed up the audience, and just getting an enormous round of applause and a cheer at the end of his tap dancing break in the Mikado song.
How long are you performing for? By which I mean, how long is each performance?
An hour.
It's an hour.
So it's a real bridge
version.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah, it's been slashed.
Just some some song.
We got Snickersnee.
Sorry?
Did you use a Snickersnee? It's from the original. That's what. There's a knife. It's
Oh,
called
I see.
Right, okay,
Sorry,
no.
I do apologise. I'm showing my roots as a very old man. So.
It's quite heavily cut, but the vast majority, in the vast majority of cases, I don't think it's massively noticeable. It's mostly just sort of it's where sort of Gilbert and Sullivan originally went off on one and wrote about six verses for a song that sort of have to go. But there's only 2 songs I think that we lost entirely.
Yeah, I mean, just before we started rehearsals, me and Seth, the vocal coach, we kind of locked ourselves in a room, sat there for about 8 or 9 hours, saying, right, this bar has to go, this verse has to go. It really had to, because we only got given an hour slot at the venue, so we just have to we had to try and keep as much musical balance and try and be consistent with it, but also try and reduce as much as possible. The original score has a lot of room for kind of very long and excessive dance breaks, and the whole thing can probably run for a good 2.5 hours, so it was quite a challenge, but I think we've managed to really kind of pull it off in terms of balance and everything.
Much less dancing.
Well, there's
still a lot
of dancing,
there is,
a huge amount of dancing, but I think dance is probably one of the things that's lost the least, in fact.
Absolutely.
Really.
You really do surprise me. I'd have thought that'd be the first thing out.
No, the dancing is all still there. Maddie, our director, is actually the choreographer as well. She's a fantastic choreographer and sort of started a hand at directing really with this, and she's done a great job of both. And the choreography is one of the things that's been most highly praised, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, from a musical director's point of view, I always get quite worried when choreography starts getting put with vocals, because you've sat and you've taught people these vocals, and then it's absolutely perfect, and then they add this choreography to it, and you wonder, oh no, well, all the harmonies and things start to fall apart.
Well,
but
you get the breathing right if you're doing a cartwheel.
Well, absolutely, yeah. but Maddie's always been choreographing very, very specifically and very intelligently about, is this still possible to sing while you're doing all this choreography, and as a result, it's really come together really well. I'm very, very proud of it.
Right, the Hot Mikado. Where can people see it?
Edinburgh College of Arts at C. Ecker, which is Launceston Place. At 10 to 7, every evening except the 15th.
Right through to the end?
Right through to the end, yeah.
Right, you're suckers for punishment. Oh, that's a long run.
Last performance is the 29th.
Yep.
Righty-ho, so you are here to the bitter end.
We are.
Well, I wish you every success. And I gather you've already had a 5-star review, which is amazing.
We have. Quite early in the run, we got 5 stars from Broadway Baby, which was really exciting. And it's really, we've noticed a big boost in our audience numbers since then. And that's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it was a hugely complimentary review. We were a little stunned. We got the news when we were advertising on the Royal Mile, and then we just kind of announced it as part of our kind of selling pitch, and no one knew in the cast. So then everyone was checking their phones. Yeah, it was a really, really big surprise.
Very exciting, yeah.
And you've got a website?
We do. It's www.hotmikadoedinburgh.co.uk.
Fantastic, and people can find you there, and that'll be on the Musical Talk website as well, so people can find you through that.
Fantastic.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you ever so much.
I am really sorry I can't see it, because I think it's cracking, and bearing in mind what I know you can do, because I saw it last year, I'm sure this will be cracking again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As it happens, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get to see the Hot Mikado, but I found time in my schedule. It's one of the last things I did before I left Edinburgh, and I was really glad to have done so. Now, I have to tell you, honestly, I don't much like the Hot Mikado. I've seen 2 different versions of it this year, and honestly, I don't think it makes the Mikado a better story. I think it's at its strongest when it stays closest to Gilbert's dialogue, and also at its best when the variations with the swing stay closest to Sullivan. I don't really enjoy the variance too much, but a lot of people do. But you couldn't criticise this performance or this production for pace or performance, or indeed comedy. They really got what they could out of it. And there's one fact about the Hot Mikado you have to remember. It was originally a 1930s black stage show, starring Bill Bojangles Robinson, and was a huge success. Unfortunately, when it finished, as was so often the case, the swing version of the score was disposed of. And it wasn't until the 1990s, when someone tried to revive the show, that they had to recreate the swing versions of the Mikado score. And so the modern version of the Hot Mikado is a completely ersatz version. It's been created, and so it's not genuine 1930s, 1940s swing, it is 1990s interpretation of 1940s swing. In fact, it is always set 10 years after when the original was produced. And by original I mean the 1930s Hot Mikado, which was already 40 to 50 years after the original Mikado opened in London. But there we are, that's enough about the Mikado, a variant on a well-known piece, which is today's theme. Well, next we move on to a show dedicated purely to Gilbert. In fact, the title was About Gilbert Without Sullivan. It could not have been plainer. And it was an hour and a half investigation into his life. Through readings of his letters and some of his texts, extracts from some of his drama rather than his musicals and comedies, as well as finishing off with an abridged version of the Mikado without music, based on a variant of the Mikado written by Gilbert himself, the children's version of the Mikado. A very entertaining, different take on the Mikado again. Let's hear from the director of this very excellent show, About Gilbert Without Sullivan. You're listening to Musical Talk.
My name's Douglas Curry, and the show is entitled About Gilbert Without Sullivan.
Now,
and the club is the Mercators Drama Club, which has been 75 years in existence.
It's one of the oldest in Edinburgh, isn't it?
I think so.
Absolutely.
There was a pause during the war. They started before the war, and there was a break for 10 years and then resumed again. We've been doing something every year.
Now, one of the things you do, I believe, as a group every year is you pick a well-known author and you sort of showcase them.
Yes, it's now 10 years. In 2002, we presented Wizard of the North about Walter Scott. One of our other members did all that, and he thought it was a way of, because we were all getting older and festival time, there's holidays and everything, so it was to be done with readings and a few dramas. Then we went on to Stevenson, Jane Austen, Oscar Wilde, Dickens, Conan Doyle, Barry, the Brontes, and last year we revised Scott and did it Abbotsford Revisited, and we thought we were going to be invited down to Scott arranged to go down last December to present this in Abbotsford, but the weather, everything closed down.
That was the really bad winter, wasn't it?
And the whole thing had been cancelled. So, but we also choose an author who has been dead for long enough. The copyright is out of existence, and I've been very fond of Gilbert Sullivan, and I suddenly realised that Gilbert died in 1911, and this is his centenary.
It is indeed, yes.
And so that's started last autumn with this research.
So you've been researching since autumn?
Yes, got the idea last autumn. We often discuss what we're going to do, and then, I used the internet to get books about them, ordered them and got them over there. And of course, I've been running the SCDA Drama Library for a number of years, and I was able to look at some of the scripts and so on. But we actually made use of the National Library to get some of the other places that are out of print.
Indeed, Daniel Druce. And, well, you quote, because it's a series of, let's talk about the show you've created. So the show itself, if you like, is it's the story of his life, but with quotations, poetry, extracts of all his work. So, and we have, there's a lovely, you performed several bits from Charity and from Sweethearts, which are two of his big plays from the end.
Oh yes, took a tiny extract from them, and we tried to choose the right bit. Also, to suit our company, we're a small company, and choose what would be suitable. And as we're all getting older, it's more difficult to learn, but we really couldn't think of doing a full-length play, which we used to do. So that this is the reason it's been... but we choose that, and the first thing we did was mostly all readings, and we decided to do a variety of things, to get some acting and some reading. So.
Well, I thought that worked really well because, as I say, people are reading extracts from newspapers, there are poetry, but also I quite liked it when they were quoting from an extract, but there was a quotation in the extract. Someone else would do that. So I, as an audience member, was flitting back and forth. It was never static. So there's a real sense of movement, even though there was a lot of reading, but also performance too. So it was still very vibrant.
Yes. We've learnt over the years to vary it and find out what is best to the strength. And I decided last year that I would want, first of all, 2 lecterns, and there would be scripts on the lecterns, because the problem in early years was people would pick their scripts up and go wandering around carrying a book. And, none of us can manage entirely without it, so this year, and they were learning up there are 2 scripts, complete scripts, and they had their own scripts. And then we decided any letters they have to have a written letter, so that you pick.
But once again, that idea of having props actually really helps bring the thing to life as well. So when people are reading poems, they read them from a scroll, or a newspaper extract is from something else, a letter, for example.
A letter, yeah.
Yeah, it's on parchment. So you started researching in November. What surprised you from your researches about Gilbert?
I first realised how much he had. What he wasn't just Sullivan. I think some of this had been found out earlier. I said, Gilbert is not just the man who wrote the music wrote the words to Sullivan's music. It was he did more. So we then researched and then found the other plays. And then, as we quoted finally, he had written 63 plays,
which is a fair few. I mean, he's prolific, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And again, many of them were unknown. We were going to try and do something with Tom Robertson because they learned from him, but time was on, and we decided to cut that down, and we just make a one mention to him. We were going to do an extract from David Garrick to show how he'd learned from Tom Robertson's one, but he didn't.
So, Gilbert, as a writer, you also don't ignore the Sullivan, the Savoy operas.
No,
because you do a rather splendid, if I may say. It ends with a staged adaptation of the children's novelisation, if you like, of the Mikado.
Yes, he wrote a book, and I don't know whether it was ever presided or not. We discovered that the book, a copy in the library, the National Library, is published in 1921, 10 years after his death. So I don't know whether it was ever performed, but I think he wrote the book to rival Barry's Peter Pan.
Oh, I see, yes.
So he wrote it, but we held it.
But he wrote a children's version of HMS Pinafore, which was performed in his lifetime, so it would have been perfectly possible.
Mm-hmm. He might have, but it's as I say, there was no copy available, no printed copy available until later.
So how did you, as a director, approach, directing the Mikado? In a slightly truncated form. But
yes, we decided it was supposed to be a storyteller telling children a story about it, and we could had to build it up from there. Because actually, when we did Oscar Wilde's one, we did a certain version of his Selfish Giant, and we had the storyteller sitting and staff off stage did some of the other voices. So this was a development of that, having learned from that for previous years, you know. So.
Finally, then, do you have any answer as to why Gilbert is still a household name today?
I think his clever wit and around his serious, shall we say, some of his sort of bitter acerbic stuff was mellowed by Sullivan's music. But that it's very clever. I mean, the bad ballads, to read them simply. But this was an attempt to put on stage and we got a government brought it to a pot, but suddenly made it so big that the only way to get in. But however, it all gradually developed, and ideas from the people, from the members, when we started rehearsing, well, don't think this would be better to record this, and so we didn't. You know, it's very much a joint effort. We start, and I think any of our writers, other people have done them. Not one script ended on stage as it had been written originally, because something doesn't sound right, something doesn't. Well, we try to keep the original author's intention, but our writing and something, you know, smooth things out and so on. And of course, this was a new venue for our first time, so
yes,
we've been here. I mean, my wife and I are members of this church, so we've been here. But however, it was
the company's first time here.
Yeah, although we've been here to help and raise money, fundraising, most people have all been here for rehearsal. But right,
I would say, therefore, just finally to say thank you so much. It's been a wonderful show. I think you can safely say that About Gilbert was about right.
Thank you,
Douglas. Thank you so much for your time.
Musical Talk. Well, there you have it, a local group in Scotland who venerate some of the great writers, essentially. And this show was a brilliant, brilliant show. I really, really enjoyed it. A lot of research had gone into it, and the readings from the letters and the newspaper articles were delivered with panache, style, and genuine character. And then to see those actors who had played all those important characters in Gilbert's life, then suddenly start playing characters from the Mikado, or rather from the children's version of the Mikado, was a real insight into their versatility. That group is an excellent group, and I look forward to hearing what they're going to do next year. But that was Gilbert. It's the centenary of his death this year, and so I was delighted that he was represented in Edinburgh. But of course, one should never forget Sullivan. He is as much part of that partnership as Gilbert. And so, in order to make things fair, although I suspect it wasn't designed this way, we also had an operetta by Sullivan without Gilbert. This is The Zoo, and it's about two courting couples who are visiting London Zoo. It lasts 45 minutes, it's a very funny comic opera, and what a little slice of joy it was. Let's hear from the director of The Zoo, by Arthur Sullivan.
Okay, my name is Ray Lamond. I was the director of The Zoo by Four Tarts and a Couple of Pears at Edinburgh Festival.
Now, we should go straight in and say Four Tarts and a Couple of Pears is in fact a quotation from the libretto of the show.
It is, but you can take it however you would like to take it.
Well, when I saw it on the page, and I have to say I didn't really know The Zoo, I did wonder. But I was delighted by the piece. It's Sullivan without Gilbert,
yes,
which is ironic because this is Gilbert's year. It's his
yes.
The centenary of his death. And indeed there's been a show in town already called about Gilbert without Sullivan.
Yes.
So in a way you're doing the A to Z with these. I don't know if
Other way round.
Now, how did you come to do the Zoo?
The Zoo. Well, most of the cast are from Edinburgh Gilbert and Sullivan Society.
Who I think I saw their Pirates of Penzance a couple of years ago.
Yes, that
Indeed,
was,
I think,
yes, a couple of years ago.
I think the Major General may have been in the
he
audience.
Was, yes, wearing yellow. Yes, so we wanted to do something for the festival, and the Zoo is perfect for that because it's the right length, it's lots of fun, it's very silly, and yeah, it's just a good fun piece to do.
It's surprising. I have to say I didn't know it. And obviously I had this, the standard belief, which is that Gilbert does a great deal for Sullivan and Sullivan does a great deal for Gilbert, and on their own most of their works are really historic pieces.
True.
With less interest.
Yes.
And the Zoo has sort of fallen into, although it was always one of the sort of the small shows that the D'Oyly Cart kept.
Yes, I think it's just quite recently it's been revived, last 10-15 years, and I've now done it probably 3 times in that 10-15 years.
Because it's fabulous. It's
really is. Really good fun.
It's actually, though I say so myself, I think that actually it's one of the best non-Gilbert librettos I've seen with Sullivan.
I think that's true, and we've been having a discussion.
Funnier than the Rose of Persia.
That is very true. We've been having a discussion in the pub about whether the Four Tarts and a Couple of Pears might be the first patter song that Sullivan did, because it's around the same time as Trial by Jury, so we're not sure whether it is or not. We're not.
Oh, I see. So they're the same era?
It was. Did the Zoo and Trial by Jury at about the same time. Trial by Jury went up first, but the Zoo had been written before Trial,
now that's
I believe.
Really, well, Trial by Jury had been written a few years beforehand, hadn't it? But not necessarily set, I suppose. So that's the point. Yes, for Carl Rosen, is that right? I think it was originally. Oh, God, I've scraped my knowledge a bit, but there we are. But it's a lovely piece, and as you say, it's exactly the right length of time. Also, you did it perfect justice. Can I just talk about the production?
Certainly.
I mean, you really wring the comedy out of it. I mean, because in terms of plot, there's not that much. It is essentially the travails of 2 couples who are both in a zoo doing their courting.
Could be anywhere.
Yes,
to be honest.
And they don't have much of an interaction except at the end, really. So it's not as clever as a Gilbert plot, but the lyrics are very smart. So. What do you like about it best?
I like the slapstick element, that was just what we brought out of it. I think a lot of people come expecting operetta in a more purer form, more opera kind of turandot, and what they're getting from us is Tom and Jerry. We've got custard pies, we've got falling over, all sorts of things like that, which is the fun bit that I liked about it.
It's fabulous because you've got one of your chorus members is in a penguin suit, and someone is in a panda suit, and the great joke is the panda suit, everyone thinks it's a stuffed bear when they come in, and of course it moves.
Yes, he's very good at sitting still for a long time.
That was an absolute coup de grace. And also, if I may say, I like the knitted props all the way through. I couldn't work out why he appeared to have a knitted rope in which to hang himself at the beginning. This is the apocryphy. But then everyone's got all the fruit and cakes are knitted. There's a knitted money bag on one of the
pad. I quite like as
with
well.
With a Velcro rip-off prescription. So everything there's all these little bits and pieces are fabulous. Presumably you've got a feverish knitter in your group.
We do, yes. The lady in red, Rachel, did most of the knitting.
She did it too.
Yes, and eBay helped as well. You can get a lot of knitted food on eBay. Who knew?
Well, do you know, that's the fact I shall take home with me to London, if I may say.
Yes, well, I wanted the knitted side of it because I wanted to emphasise that it was a cartoon world, so I felt that helped towards that, and it's good fun.
But I really like the deft touches, and the diction of the singing was very good. How long has it been in production? When did you start this production?
We started in June, and we did it all in about 8 rehearsals, and for that we didn't actually have the whole cast at all rehearsals until the night of the first night, actually. Summer's a difficult
like
time.
Life.
Yes, everyone's on holiday, they come back, they're not there, they've got exams. It came together on the first night.
It's never a good time, though, is it?
No. But everyone's done shows before and is quite experienced, so we were able to kind of pull it together.
Well, as I say, there was that GNS diction, which is so important. You could hear every word, and although for most people in the audience, I suspect the plot isn't that familiar, there was no trouble following what was going on.
Good,
so,
it
really came across. It was clarity, and forgive me, if you haven't got that, then you haven't got a show. So, yours goes straight in there.
Great.
The musical background, I like the Sullivan in this. It feels like early Sullivan. He's not as adventurous per se. I mean, maybe is that a little unfair, or? He gets stranger as he goes on. I'm thinking of the grandeur.
Yes, I think that's true. It's quite tum-tum, which is all right, and it propels the plot, and it keeps going to the end, and it's got some nice touches. The Rule Britannia thrown in there I quite like.
And beginning and end as
yes,
well. Absolutely, yes. Although it's a strange way of tying up a show, isn't it? It's almost, right, we've sorted everything out, what now? Right, Britons never will be slaves. Yes. Just confirming that, you audience. Yes, jolly good. And has it been going down well?
It has, yes. The audiences have been very kind, I'll put it that way. And we've sold out quite a lot this week. This is our third sellout night this week, so we're pleased with that.
And how long is your run?
We finish on Sunday, so not many to go.
So grab it while you can,
exactly,
really.
yes.
And who are you? So I mean, you're affiliated with the Edinburgh Gilbert and Sullivan.
We're not really affiliated.
You're not?
No, we're just people who met doing Gilbert and
Satellites.
Sullivan. Yes, the chap who was Thomas Brown tonight, Andrew Edmonston, has funded us, and
so it's
just for fun. We're just.
Do you have a website?
No, not at the moment. But if we decide to do more, we possibly will.
Right. So pay attention to. Are you going to continue calling yourself Four Pairs?
I think so. We like it.
Splendid. So basically, people should Google that on a 6-monthly basis until they find the right answer.
What we're going to do next.
Well, do you think you might bring anything to the festival next year?
I think so. I think we've shown that there has been an audience for a bit of Sullivan, and there's never that much Sullivan at the festival when they're
not enough, in my view.
Yes, I think that's probably true. So we'll see what we can come up with for next year.
I've just come from the Hot Mikado, by the way.
Oh, very good.
Yes, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet.
They trimmed it down to an hour, but they've managed to make it work. Actually,
very good.
Enough. That's oh crikey, that's Dulog.
We've just done the Mikado in Buxton, so
well, of course that clashes with the Fringe, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we at MusicalTalk celebrated Gilbert's centenary by commissioning a studio version of Ages Ago.
Oh, brilliant.
So, so everybody loves everything. That's well, thank you so much for talking to me. It's a lovely show. You've done wonders with it.
Thank you.
And long may it and long may you prosper.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to MusicalTalk at the Edinburgh Fringe. And that was Arthur Sullivan's The Zoo. And that was the very last show I saw in Edinburgh. But it's not the last show we're going to be discussing here on MusicalTalk, because there are more next week. But what can I tell you about The Zoo? It was just a lovely, lovely piece. I gave it 5 stars. It really deserved it. What I, as an audience member, was presented with was clarity and hilarity with a wonderful show. And how nice to see that there are a lot of people in the world looking to explore the outer envelope of the world of the Savoy operas. We on MusicalTalk, as you know, have recorded 2 shows by W.S. Gilbert without Sullivan, and it's nice to see that Sullivan is also having his shows without Gilbert produced. Well, that's about it for this week. Don't forget, all the links to various groups and shows that we've been discussed are available on the MusicalTalk website, www.musicaltalk.co.uk. And I hope this episode has given you an interesting insight into those shows, particularly in connection with the theme of variation, variant and vision. However, next week it's back to the more standard episodes of MusicalTalk at the Fringe, as we give you yet more insights, interviews and discussions about the shows on at the Fringe. It's the next best thing to being there, and slightly cheaper in terms of accommodation and catering, of course. So until next week, let me say goodbye. Here's me doing it. Goodbye. This episode of MusicalTalk presented and edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright MusicalTalk 2011, except for the music, where the copyright persists with the original creators. And now for some more Edinburgh Fringe Out Talks. It's just not very appropriate for 11 years into the new decade.
Okay.
You might have to lean in.
Okay, yeah.
Just say a few things.
Just say a few things? All right.
That's perfect.
Just testing out? Okay.
And if you say anything you hadn't said, just say and I'll take that out.
Okay.
It's not an interrogation or an expose.
Okay.
And what we'll do, we'll start on your one, if that's okay. And
Yeah.
Move on to something.
Okay.
Is that
that all right for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
You're good copy, you know. I hadn't realised.
A good what?
Good copy.
does
Because
that
you
mean?
have such good theatrical understanding. You speak very well and knowledgeably about what you're talking about.
Oh, thank you,
yeah,
Thomas.
It's really good. I'd be very happy to interview you again.
Oh,
Right. Well, I'm going to ask you can you give me a couple of lines just at your natural speaking voice?
Yeah, this is my natural speaking voice. I talk.
Right. The way I normally start this is ask people to give me their name and their involvement in a show.
Okay.
And then it's not a question interview. We'll just sort of take it conversationally until it sort of peters, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Could be anything from 10 minutes to 15, 20.
Yeah.
Depends on how you feel.
That's absolutely fine, whatever.
Thank you. Lovely. Well, in which case, was that all right for you? Is there anything in there you want to take out or not?
Nope.
Good. That was fantastic. Yeah, good. And that was 19 minutes, I believe. Yeah. Well, you're very easy to talk to, clearly, so... Go on, you should... We're going to take a very established...
This one's better, if anything.
Damn you! Right, well, we are actually recording, but if you say anything you'd rather you hadn't said, just say and I will take it out. Okay. I'm going to stand now. I'm going to ask you just quickly for levels, actually, so I'll have to ask you to come in a little bit closer.
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind just saying one thing, a sentence each?
Hello. Yes, that's a sentence, right. I suppose. Yeah.
Go on.
Hi, my name's Guy.
Fantastic.
And I'm Chris.
Marvellous. That's about right. I probably will move the microphone around, but that seems to be okay. If that's okay. Right, what I'm going to ask... Now, is that all right for you all?
Perfect.
I'm going to ask one very brief thing. You only gave me your first names at the beginning. Can I ask you just... would you mind giving me your full name and what you do, and I'll edit that in, if that's okay? And then I'll ask for a photograph at the end, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'm Douglas Gibbs, and I'm playing Pooh Bar.
I'm Guy Hughes, and I'm producing and playing the Mikado.
I'm Chris Gard, and I'm the musical director of the show.
Thank you. Do you have a website, chaps?
Yes, we do.
Actually.
Hot Mikado... Or shall I...
Yeah.
Our website is www.hotmikadoedinburgh.co.uk.
.org.uk, isn't it?
It's .co. No, it's
Give me both.
.com. It's .com.
Check this now for you.
Research. See, this is the modern world. You see, we can do this now. 20 years ago, you'd have to write it on a piece of paper and send a pigeon.
All the phones come out.
Got to get this right, though, guys.
I'm pretty sure
It
it's
would be
.com.
helpful. How's it selling, brother?
Really
We
well.
sold out one night.
Yeah, considering that our audiences last year probably averaged about 25 to 30. Yeah, it was quite a bit because, like I was saying, it's very difficult sell.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, I think it's combination. Well, having 5 stars from Broadway Baby quite early in the run was a big bonus. But since then, we've really been. I mean, it's been about 80 most nights. Since
it's a good year for Gilbert this year as well, do you? Because it's
yes,
the centenary of his death.
Yeah.
Great.
We're on. I came across a mention that we've got on the Gilbert Appreciation
I
website, the Gilbert Appreciation Society
That'll be Andrew
website.
Crowther. Yeah.
Oh right, yeah.
I need to run into a show. I'm afraid I need to run to see a show.
That's fine. Well, can I just get this one line?
Sure.
Yes. Do you guys want to
I'm
In which case, I'm going to very brief. Run, my beauties. Right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. That's all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Nice seeing you again. Best of luck.
Thank you, yeah. Thanks very much. Cheers.
I'll just take that sentence from
I
you then, if
will
that's all right.
just check it. Mine's not loading.
Okay.
Or give me...
Best place for internet, just here.
You might want to mention your 5 stars then. Or I'll say, and I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Might as well give it the advertising we can.
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, I'm always happy to help, frankly, to be honest.
That's
Okay, I think it's .co.uk then.
Yeah.
You can always give me both, and I'll put the right one in, because
that one didn't
it's been
work.
known.
So it might be this one.
It's that one.
This looks right.
Hotmikadoedinburgh.co.uk.
Right, okay. Well, I'll start with a quick sentence which I'll edit in.
Sure.
And I gather you've already had a 5-star review, which is amazing.
We have. Quite early in the run, we got 5 stars from Broadway Baby, which was really exciting. And it's really, we've noticed a big boost in our audience numbers since then. And that's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it was a hugely complimentary review. We were a little stunned. We got the news when we were advertising on the Royal Mile, and then we just kind of announced it as part of our kind of selling pitch, and no one knew in the cast. So then everyone was like checking their phones. Yeah, it was a really, really big surprise.
Very
I loved
exciting,
it.
yeah.
And you've got a website?
We do. It's www.hotmikadoedinburgh.co.uk.
Fantastic, and people can find you there, and that'll be on the Musical Talk website as well, so people can find you through that.
Fantastic.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you ever so much.
I think that's pretty much okay. That was
Thank you
17
very much.
minutes,
Thanks,
so that led it down very nicely to about 14.
Sorry, just getting a phone call. I better. No, I'll just. Sorry, Joe. I'll phone you back in a minute.
Outtakes, marvellous. Yeah. I won't keep you much longer, chap.
Sorry about that. That was Joe. So, Joe was Jackie in Wild Party, if you remember.
Right, okay,
He's just come up to visit. He's not in the show. But what were we talking about? Sorry.
We were talking about dance being cut.
Yes.
This is your last night. I only realised that tonight when I looked at the programme.
Yeah, finishing tonight.
Good. That was very good.
Douglas, well done you. That was very good to put that together.
Thank you.
So well. It must have been a huge amount of research. And where else to do it but in the library?
and quite a promising young company, I would have said.
Yeah. They'll go far, I think.
They should stick in. Anyway, good night. Thank you very much.
The recycled juvenile, recycled teenagers.
Nice to see you.
I hope I'm not keeping you from your friend.
No, they're writing from Fife, so it's drama. One thing is, Alan, this gentleman.
Hello, how do you do? My name's Thos. Never mind.
And they're doing we wanted to find out about Gilbert and Sullivan and so on, and he's good talk. But I was saying that you were the one who sort of started this idea of tributes with Scott, and you've also done Jane Austen, Stevenson, Dickens.
Oh, you set the ball rolling for this kind of sort of...
Alan tried it out for the first time. We're all the same company.
Back in 2002, we were just looking for something different to do. So we started off a tribute on Sir Walter Scott and Scott's novels and his whole life story. So it was like a dramatised documentary.
Thank you very much. You've compiled.
Just a minute.
Of course.
The chairs have got to be... You can disentangle them, but just also doesn't want them put away until it comes back.
We just want some left.
So what you can do is you can help with these tables have got to go back, so when John and I come back, so leave the tables will go on. So, right? So, wait till the others come.
This is why you're a good director, you see. Is that all right?
That's lovely.
Is there any contact details you want to give in lieu of a website, or are you happy?
I don't think so, because I don't know if we're actually going to do anything again. We've just done that. Thank you very much.
Really? Thank you. Is that all right?
That's lovely.
Lovely. You got my card, haven't you?
Shoot. Red, orange, bum, 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 bum. Whoa, look, I made a hat where there never was a hat. Uh-oh, finishing the hat. How you have to finish the hat.